Hi, I'm Joyelle.
Hi, I'm Ryan.
And today we're going to be reviewing 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yes, so 10 Things I Hate About You from 1999. It is an adaptation of William Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew, and we follow Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, Cameron, who has this immense crush on this girl, Bianca, but she has a very strict father who's not allowing her to date until her older sister starts dating, and her relationship, she is pretty much, as you've described, a raging feminist who is not interested. We love it. And she hates, like, basically all the guys in her high school. She has no interest in any of these morons. She just thinks that they're useless, and she's just trying to do the best she can as a student and just as a person. But through wacky hijinks, we are introduced to Heath Ledger's character, Patrick, who may or may not be interested in her, but over time they actually develop a strong relationship, and we see how that develops. Now, Joyelle, you seem to be the rom-com expert, so I'm just going to turn it over to you, and let's just start off with you. You have something going on in a few weeks, right?
I do. What a coincidence. I am the creator / founder of Rom-Con with an N. This is a one-day convention, festival, whatever you want to call it, celebrating the romantic comedy genre, because it doesn't always get what it deserves. It is often very criticized and looked down upon because it is marketed towards women, but guess what? It's a very valid genre, a lot of great rom-coms, and so we're celebrating it, but we're also innovating it because there are some flaws there. The genre has been very white, very straight and cis, and I think we're in this period of rom-com renaissance, and so, we need to look towards the future of the genre. People want diversity, people want to see all different kinds of love stories. So we're going to be showing 3 different films, and we're going to be having a book signing by a local author. So if that sounds like fun to you, then you should come by Shemin Auditorium on April 29th, beginning at 1 p.m., and come and join in on the fun.
All right. Yeah, and we're very excited for that event, so I'll be volunteering, so I'll be around for that. And yeah, it's funny. It's a shame that the genre gets a bad rap because some of the best films ever made have been in the genre. And the criticism it gets, you can say that about almost any genre. So
true.
Like, I know it is a stereotype, but like people talk about like guy movies. Like, I'll be the first to admit, the Transformers movies, with the exception of maybe the first one, most of them are pretty terrible. But I know that the 12-year-old kid in me loves seeing cars explode. So, like, I know what I'm watching isn't necessarily the best thing.
Understandable, yeah. Every genre has its tropes. That's what a genre is. But, like, if you're gonna have tropes, like falling in love, positivity, predictability is not a bad thing. Like, who doesn't want just, like, a nice, predictable movie where you know what's gonna happen and it just feels like a warm embrace? Like, I mean, these are good things. The genre should not be punished for that.
Yeah, it's like comfort food. So
yeah, I mean, I've been watching 10 Things I Hate About You, like, since I was a kid. And every time I watch it, like, it's just, I love knowing what's gonna happen. That's part of the appeal to me.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing too, and what this film does really well is that, technically speaking, unless you come up with something revolutionary, everything kind of has been done before. So it's really about the delivery of it, and I think this film, especially with the cast, like you have Julia Stiles, you have Heath Ledger, JGL is in this movie.
And this was like the introduction for a lot of them, like into their now very successful careers.
The new millennium, so 99 when this came out.
No, and the way that this film is based on Taming of the Shrew, Shakespeare, like the way they blend that in is perfect. Like they just sprinkle in some lines, but then they kind of acknowledge like, oh, that's kind of like a weird thing to say. Like it's so seamless and it adds so much to like the humor. And then there's this like whole subplot where like Michael is asking out a girl and she's obsessed with Shakespeare, and so he gets her like the medieval dress. Like, it is just so well done. The film has so many good like little details and just like really good cinematography and scenes that I feel like a lot of times people are just like, oh, it's like a teen high school movie, like it doesn't need to be good, like teens are dumb, they'll watch it. Not true. Teens are very smart and they know when a movie is bad. And I think the fact that this movie is so good is why we're still talking about it 24 years later.
I really love what you just said too about the teen aspect of it as well, because it's a rom-com, but this goes towards romances and just comedies alike.
Yeah.
One of the best film critics of all time, Roger Ebert, pointed out that around this time, a lot of those films were being made, like She's All That and American Pie. And what he complimented about those films is that they weren't mean. They actually respected and admired the characters. Like, of course, for drama and like for comedy, the writers would put their characters in awkward situations, but it wasn't like they were looking down on them. There was like this, especially during that era of like the late 90s to early 2000s, there was just this like really bizarre cruelty, especially towards teens, and like those are some of your most vulnerable years as a human.
Yeah.
So that's why like you should definitely applaud movies like 10 Things I Hate About You for actually respecting the characters.
No, definitely. I mean, from like the very first scene, it's like clear who Kat is, and she's like a super cool character, and like I said, she is a raging feminist, and I mean that in the best way possible. But like, you know, Bianca has a really great arc. She starts out as kind of this like selfish sort of like snobby girl who's just kind of like using Cameron, but like as soon as she starts to spend time with Joey, who is sort of, you know, the kind of the villain of the movie, like she starts to realize like, hey, like this guy is actually like the worst, and I don't want to be friends with these shallow people. And like she is given a really great arc that is often not seen in 90-minute movies, just because I mean it's hard to accomplish in that short of a time frame.
Oh yeah, and like all the relationships too, like for a film that could have easily just been very stock, kind of what you were saying, like you do like a comfort value in some of these movies, but sometimes it's like, okay, I would like to have at least good chemistry.
Yes.
And I think the cast has like really good chemistry in this film.
The chemistry is, I think, really what makes it so special. And I actually have a fun fact for you.
Okay.
So
I'm unaware of this.
considered for the role of Patrick, played by the legendary Heath Ledger. This is his best role, not Joker. I will stand by that completely. Ashton Kutcher Ashton Kutcher was actually considered for this role, and instead of Julia Stiles, Kate Hudson actually got the role for Kat. So like, what a different movie this would have been had it been Ashton Kutcher and Kate Hudson. I just don't know if it would have worked. The casting is just so perfect. And one more fun fact for you. Did you know that 10 Things I Hate About You was adapted into a TV show?
Funny enough, I did not know that. So
20 episodes. That's all that it was able to air for. I have watched it. It is not great. And I do wonder if it's like,
I had a fear you were gonna say that. So.
Yeah, there was just some magic that happened while making that movie that I don't think it can be recaptured. Like I just think the stars aligned and everything about it, like the time period, the soundtrack was so good, the stars were so good, just everything worked out, and having a TV show, it just didn't work.
And I think that's a good thing to point out, is that you could definitely expand on certain stories. Like I have nothing against remakes or sequels, because at the end of the day, we still have the originals. But think of like any popular film or something that was remotely significant, like your fantasies like Star Wars, or your musicals like Wizard of Oz. Sure, you could do them again, but those films just work so well because all the pieces were there at the time. It was like perfect time, perfect setting, and you're never gonna recapture that. So,
and it is sort of like a little piece of history. You have like Clueless being a rom-com take on Emma. Clueless is so good. This being like Taming of the Shrew. She's the Man being a take on The 12th Night. Like, it was a period in time, and it was incredible, amazing, and I think now we can just kind of like move forward, take inspiration, but like do new stories, you know, new rom-coms.
Yeah.
I think we don't need to remake this one. I think it's perfect the way it is.
And going back to what you said at the beginning of the review, I really love how you're pointing out that it is time, like we are slowly starting to get more diverse voices, and I think an important way to do that is what we're doing now with this review, is that to go forward, we're going back a little bit to see how far we've come.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to say too about the performances, Julia Stiles and Heath Ledger to me are like the perfect pairing in this. Julia Stiles, like everything she does, she always manages to capture like somebody who's like very stern and serious, but she also has like a heart of gold. She captures that really well. And not to get too sappy, but watching this really makes me miss Heath Ledger. Like, I'm not gonna bring up Joker, even though I love him in that. But what I will say is that in movies like this, it's easy to forget that he brought so much heart and personality to a role that could have easily just been like the stock sort of cool guy. And you're like, wow, this guy actually feels like a real human being that I would love to actually know. So.
For sure. They did such a good job with actually giving the characters like full real personalities and like a lot of heart and emotion. Like you do really root for them. And I mean, this movie gave us two of the greatest film scenes of all time, which is Heath Ledger singing "Can't Take My Eyes Off of You"
so
in the
good.
bleachers. Like, when is that gonna happen to me? When am I gonna be serenaded? It's been 24 years. I'm waiting. And the other amazing scene, of course, is Kat reading her poem about how, you know, the worst part is that she doesn't actually hate him, and she runs out of the room crying, and like I am a person who, like, I do kind of judge movies a little bit by like how many scenes am I gonna remember years from now? How many lines am I gonna quote? And this movie, it really is so memorable. At a time where, like you said, a lot of these, you know, teen rom-coms that were coming out, they were just kind of forgettable, and no one really is talking about them anymore. So yeah, I think it's really made an impact in the romantic comedy genre, but I think in cinema as a whole.
Sure, definitely. It's earned its place in film history, and let alone this genre. And this is one of those films where it's like, you can see clearly that beat for beat, there's like these iconic moments, like the serenade scene. I love that. So I'm not even in Julia Stiles' position. I felt like Heath Ledger was talking to me. And then I remember like the detention scene was even one of my favorites, and them sneaking out. I think the whole prom or the dance segment, it was prom, I'm pretty sure.
It was prom.
Yeah, and that's like, I don't know why, there's such a weird thing. I'm like a sucker for a good prom scene. I don't know why.
Oh yeah,
So.
I mean, it's a staple in the genre.
Yeah,
like,
American Pie is a great prom scene, if you guys know what I'm talking about. So.
Yeah. No, it really does have so many like great moments. It's the perfect representation of a romantic comedy, I think.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think it holds up pretty well.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So, what would you give it out of 10? What's your rating?
I mean, 10 Things I Hate About You is a 10. Like you know, romantic comedies, I'm a harsh judge, because as you said, I'm kind of an expert. So I judge fairly harshly, but this is one of my all-time favorites. It is like a comfort movie. I've probably seen it a dozen times, and every time I watch it, I like pick up on something new. I find something new to love about it, and yeah, I would say one of my all-time favorite movies, so it's a 10 for me.
Wow, that's high praise.
Yeah.
I think just a couple of things, like, not everything clicks for me, but I still think it's a good film. Certain characters that, I think most of the characters hold up well, like there's the counselor we talked about.
Yes, writing her erotic novel.
Exactly.
Like, just the little moments like that, so good.
Yeah, I just know, like, maybe it's just the repeat value. Like, I have seen it a few times, but it's not the one I'm always rushing to. that being said, it's still a very well made movie. So I'm gonna give it a solid 8 out of 10. I think it's a very good film. So yeah, that's our review of 10 Things I Hate About You. Do you have any closing statements?
It's on Disney Plus. If you have not seen it, I recommend watching, and if you have seen it, probably time for a rewatch.
Yeah. Check it out again.